So in this video, we're going to see what RT has to say, what they're putting out about why Putin received such massive support from the Russian people. Remember, he was elected with 87.9% of the vote. Um, so that's pretty impressive if it is legit, but it's not legit. So let's hear what they have to say, how they describe it.
Vladimir Putin is a brand name, carefully cultivated, something that's grown over the years. But why shouldn't a Russian vote for Vladimir Putin?
Well, there's a number of reasons why a Russian shouldn't vote for Vladimir Putin, starting with that he's rigged the election, and we all know that it's rigged, and they know it's rigged, but he's going to make this case like it's he's just a great figure. Well, no, a great figure doesn't need to do what he did. In fact, I made the case yesterday. I think Putin could have won the election like without having done all this monkeying. Like he's prepared the Russian people for so long. He has uh, gone out of his way to control the narrative so long that if he just had taken his hand off the wheel and just let a real vote take place, he might have even passed and won the election. Like, who was his opposition? Nobody was voting for his opposition. He might have looked a lot worse. He might have barely squeaked by or something, but he could have won.
Look outside. The country is growing. The GDP is growing. Wages are growing. Look at Europe. Recession, less than single digit growth in Europe, 0.6%. In France.
Stalled.
Recession. And
So I think he's trying to make the case that Russians really feel this, this zest of the economy. And I highly doubt that that's the case. I think that they're probably feeling recession-like feeling at the supermarket, just like we are in the United States.
in Germany. And then they ask, why are people voting for Putin in this environment? Russia sanctioned to hell. That is what they call them, sanctions from hell, right? And they wonder why people are voting for Putin.
Well, it is true. Russia has been heavily sanctioned, and then they have turned and tried to economically reorder themselves so that they're just playing with the BRICS rather than with the West, and they're trying to rework the economies. And to their credit, they're doing their best to remove themselves from the hole that they dug for themselves. So, but I would hardly say this is robust and awesome.
Because you were sending missiles to be fired at Russian cities. There is, of course, a national spirit. People want a strong leader, and this is in every single country.
So let's say that his argument is true. People want the strong leader, and okay, I believe that there's a good portion of the population that does. But if that is true, why do you have to spend the $1 billion to make sure that the election is fraudulently done in your favor? Like, why would you have to go to these lengths if people actually do want that?
Country in the world. A presidential election is always a popularity contest in who will be a stronger leader. I must say,
A real presidential election is a popularity contest. This is not that thing. So if it's a popularity contest is only as true as the freedom that people have in order to vote for the people that they want to vote for. But if it's fake, then it's different.
here, Vladimir Putin has a huge advantage over the other candidates. Absolutely huge
That's the truest thing that he said so far.
advantage. And that is his track record. When he says something, he delivers. He came to power over a Russia that couldn't feed itself. Russia depended on UN humanitarian aid in 2000 to feed its population. Now, 20 odd years after Vladimir Putin came to power, Russia is the biggest exporter of food products, foodstuffs in the world.
Okay, so what he just said is actually like why I was saying I think Putin might have been able to win this on his own without the fraudulent means, because especially the older demographic, like 50 and up, still think very highly of Putin because they still think highly of the former Soviet Union more than the younger generation.
Not everyone voted for Putin, though. I do want to talk about the other candidates. Nikolai Kharitonov was the runner-up.
representing the Communist Party. He gained more than 3.7 million votes. 3.7 million.
3.7 million votes to the guy that thought that in his platform, agriculture like they did in the 1930s, we need to get back to that.
And that's quite a lot of people who voted for him. We've seen throughout Russia's election history that candidates from the Communist Party do tend to come in second. Can you talk a little bit about Kharitonov and why people voted for him?
They tend to come in second. That means they always lose to Putin or Medvedev.
Well, look, of course, it would be a very strange world if everyone agreed. The communists who are returned for the other old, who want to try again, who look at this capitalism that has prospered in Russia in recent years, and they feel disgust. They feel that it is unfair that there are the 1% who are so rich and who are so prosperous, and then there's everyone else, the 99.
But of course, they have more of that greater disparity in Russia than in other places with the oligarchs who have so. Okay, anyway.
9% who have to wake up every morning, work, and they don't see their wages grow at the same pace. There are the liberal Democrats who have their own ideas about the future of Russia, who have a much more populist tone to them, but ultimately,
that's all you can say about the liberal Democrats. They have a populist tone.
You're talking about Leonid Slutsky there, but what about Davankov? What about Davankov? Because he also got 3 million votes. So Vladislav Davankov. I mean, I think
we're talking about candidates who each got about 4% in a rigged election, as if they're contenders.
3.2 million for him, 3.7 million for Nikolai Kharitonov. I mean, like Rachel was saying, these are not small numbers. 3 million to this guy, this party, 3 million to this party. It does say something, right?
What it says is that there were about 9 million or so that actually had the guts to vote the other direction, regardless of how many ballot boxes were stuffed with pro-Putin. There were 9 million or so people within Russia that were still willing to run the risk of voting against Putin and whatever that might mean for them. So good on them.
I'll say a lot. There are, as I mentioned, there's still millions, tens of millions. For example, pensioners who were alive during the Soviet period, who remember the pride that they felt when Yuri Gagarin went to space over the Soviet Union's space program, over the equality that there was. Of course, they have nostalgia about the Soviet.
And so for that reason, and that's why I keep saying, I think Putin could have been reelected honestly in Russia. I can't prove that, but he didn't need to do what he did, but doing what he did only proves who he is.
Soviet period. And they want to return to it. They remember the brighter, the brighter parts, the parts that stood out. You have the younger generations who believe in a younger candidate. Vladimir Putin is, after all, over 70 years old. They see this Davankov, this candidate who is 40 years old, who promises a much more prosperous, a business-oriented future in which every Russian can be an entrepreneur. He wants to end this conflict as quickly as possible, and they see him.
And there was no candidate that was going to be speaking out against the war in a meaningful way. This is wrong. You shouldn't have done this. We should go back. Ukraine is our friend, there was nobody that could actually get on the ballot that would. So once you got to the who was on the ballot, the game was fixed from that point forward. But even then, I wonder whether whether Putin could have won, even if he had allowed legitimate opposition. Now, they want to tout this turnout surpasses 77%. And then with that, he won 88% of the vote. And that's to show just how behind Putin they are. But of course, it's all smoke and mirrors. And if it's smoke and mirrors, they're not really behind him. Okay, that's all that I have. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and the coffees. And tell me what you think in the comments below. What you took away from listening to this whitewash of the election. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.